Okay, so that is a disclaimer that I need everyone to know, because when we are doing an open house, we are representing the seller of that home. So you do have an obligation to first and foremost try to sell that home. And by the way, the sellers do have eyes and ears in the neighborhood. They may send their neighbors through the open house. They may, if you aren't the listing agent, you're not going to know the seller if they walked in the door. So remember that first and foremost, you're there to sell that house. And then if you are able to identify that that house is not the right house for them, you are free to try to sell them another house if you identify that. So part of the process we'll talk about today is kind of how to determine that. Okay. And then it is a great source of warm leads, because how do people start their home search?
On the internet.
First, online, right? They're looking online, and what do they do next? Most of them are going to open houses.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why I love them, and, sure, there are absolutely people who come through the open houses who have realtors already. And yet there are a lot of people that is how they start their home search. And again, especially those first-time home buyers who do not have an existing relationship with a realtor, that's how they start. They look online and then they go to open houses. So that is why I like them. When to do open houses? Anytime, right? And I think we're better at this now as an industry, but traditionally and historically, everyone just did open houses Sunday 1 to 4, actually, right? It used to be Sunday 1 to 4. And now the trend is more so 2 to 4, which I like. I found that 1 to 2 hour was not usually very productive. So I do open houses 2 to 4 generally on the weekends, but they can be anytime. Okay, they don't have to be 2 to 4. Like, don't put yourself in a shoebox necessarily, right? We will sometimes change up the time if we need to, if there's a conflict in our schedule, or look at the sports schedule. That's another thing to think about, right? If there's a big event happening in our area, if, a popular team is playing, if the Nationals are playing, if the Redskins are playing, if the Cowboys are playing the Redskins, like, you're probably not going to get like a lot of attendance at your open house. A lot of people are going to be watching the game. Okay. So factor that in, right? So it doesn't mean cancel it for the day. Maybe you just do it at a different time. Maybe you do it 11 to 1 or 10 to 12. Leave time for people to get to their game. Other thing that a lot of people have suggested is have the game on at the open house. That's a suggestion that I've heard. Still, I think a lot of people are going to stay home if there's something that's really important to them. So factor that into when you do your open house. What did I forget to click? In case you're recording, you forgot to click it. Oh, I'm not recording. So
I am.
Okay. I was just glancing at the chat. So timing, right? It just, don't think that you have to be at a certain time to do open houses. Again, if you like doing them, if you're good at doing them, if you find them a good source of business for yourself, do them anytime, especially these days when listings are limited, right? There's not a lot of listings out there to hold open. So, contact a listing agent and offer to do an open house for them on a Friday night or some other time, right? Or a Sunday at 10, right? Make that offering. And so for me, I do open houses the first weekend that I have a listing on the market. I actually now do Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays are typically what I do. Again, because most likely it's not going to last more than one weekend. So I would like to get the most buyers through the house for my client, the seller, and also I'd like the most opportunities to meet new buyers as well. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is when I'm doing open houses these days. And yeah, again, if there's a holiday, if there's a weekday, I haven't done a lot of that, but I know some other people have. So that is the main point there, is that really it can be anytime. So where are you going to do the open houses? Who's here? So a lot of people here have their own open houses, but it's worth noting. Of course, you can do other people's open houses. Do we have any new people? There's no one new here, is there? Suze? I don't know all the names here.
Yeah, there are a couple of new agents.
A couple of new agents. Okay. So if you're a new agent, again, not unusual to not have your own listings. So that's okay. And again, when I started in the business, I didn't have my own listings. So I got friendly. Oh, Jen just showed up. I got friendly with listing agents, you know, the top listing agents, and I was right by their side, you know, whenever they had a new listing to see if I could do, you know, their open houses for them. Because, you know, again, the newer on the market, the better the traffic is going to be typically. So that's for new agents. That you know, you can absolutely, you know, do other people's open houses. And then where you would do them, and again, this was me in the beginning. Like now, you know, I do my own, and sometimes I will still do other people's, but in the beginning, I was a little bit choosy. You can see number 4 there, right? Because realize that if you do pick up buyers off of that open house, most likely the buyer is going to be looking for something like the open house that you held. They might be looking in that particular geographic area, or they're going to be looking for that type of home at that price point, right? So I'll tell you honestly, right, especially if I was a new agent, I don't know that I would be doing $1 million open houses. Now I know Andy Stevens is successful at that and that works for him, but me, and what, I mean, even later years in the business, I mean, I don't find that $1 million price point as successful for me as open houses, because oftentimes those are buyers that do have relationships with realtors. And so the sweet spot, I would say, is like 400 to 700,000. It's kind of a good sweet spot in terms of like first time home buyers, yeah, and people who might not, you know, already be in a relationship with another realtor. So, and then areas that, you know, when you're a new agent, especially, like part of your value that you're going to show if you don't have a lot of experience is your knowledge of the area. So that's why, again, like part of the before that I'll talk about later is get to know the market. If you don't know it, get to know it, and then do open houses in that area that you know. You know, obviously, if you live in an area, if you, you know, for me, Alexandria, Arlington Falls, Church, right? Those are the areas that I've lived. That's what I knew best. Like if you put me in Reston, if you put me in Herndon, I mean, that's just like outside of those areas, I am not as good because I don't know, you know, people will say, oh, what's the nearest metro, or, you know, what's the nearest grocery store or park or whatever. And I don't know. And so, you know, I want to be knowledgeable. I want to show value in the area that they're looking in. So that is why I would ideally try to choose an area that you know, or where you want to do business, or comparable to another area that you know. So in the beginning, I'll give you an example. And again, this is a way that I showed value to people, was that Fairlington Town was a neighborhood that my mentor listed a lot in when I started in the business. And so I would do a lot of open houses in Fairlington Town. It's a small townhome community. It's, you know, in Fairlington. It's actually in the Alexandria side of Fairlington. And so people would come through there. And once I identified if that home was not right for them, I would say, well, are you familiar with Warwick Village? Which is a different neighborhood. And that's probably not the best example. I'll actually say Beauregard Heights. So Beauregard Heights is a neighborhood that I sell a lot in. So that neighborhood is about the same price point, or it was anyway back then. And you can get a lot more for your money there, right? So I would say, you know, if this isn't right for you and you're looking for something bigger, if you go a little bit south in Alexandria, I can get you a 2,500 square foot townhome with 3 to 4 bedrooms and 3.5 baths for about the same price. Would that be of interest to you? Right now, I've shown value to them because I know of another area that they might not know about, especially if they're just starting their search. So yeah, I think that was the point I wanted to make there. Another area comparable to what you know. So Any questions? I'll pause. I'm doing a lot of talking. Any questions so far? All right. Okay. So how did I build my business on open houses, right? That's what everyone wants to know. That's kind of their crux of it. So essentially, the goal of every open house is to schedule what we call a free or a no cost, no obligation buyer consultation. That is the goal of every open house, to schedule at least one of those, if not more. And that is my expectation of Jen, my buyer's agent. And that is our goal. And so every open house, again, as I said in the beginning, you are there to represent the seller and possibly try to sell the house for the seller, which happens. Actually, one of the first open houses that Jen did for Homes by Mason, she sold that house. It was her first buyer deal. So and she did both. She got a buyer consultation and she sold that house to that buyer. So that's part of why she was hired for Homes by Mason. So anyway, that's the goal. Schedule a free no cost, no obligation buyer consultation. And how do we get to that? I'll talk about. So some key strategies to get there include building rapport. It's a little bit harder in the time of COVID because I've got a mask over my face, right? And so again, the smile helps. And I have to remind myself sometimes. So I actually got a plastic shield and I was wearing that for a while because I wanted people to still be able to see my face when they came through the open house. And then it just wasn't that comfortable. And I also was worried it wasn't as protective without a mask underneath it. So I just went back to wearing a mask. We'll hopefully be out of this soon, but making a connection and building rapport and smiling, is part of that. There's other ways to do it. So one of the big ways that I do it is as soon as someone comes through the door, I am typically looking for, is there anything that we have in common, right? If they have a short haircut, I'll say cute hair and I'll point to mine, right? Or if they're wearing anything from, Red Sox or Boston, I'm from Massachusetts and I will point that out. Oh, are you a Red Sox fan? Are you from Massachusetts? I'm from Massachusetts too. If they've got kids, I might guess at the age of the kids. And then that opens the door for me to say, yeah, I've got some too, mine are this age. So making a connection and building rapport is one of the first things I'm doing when they're walking through the door. And then, and again, I'm going to dive deeper into some of these as we get later, but these are kind of like the meat of it, right? If you don't make it to the end of the presentation, but the meat is show what you know. So I talked a little bit about it earlier, right? So knowledge of the neighborhood is great because, people who are new to the area or who aren't familiar with that neighborhood, right? If they're moving out of DC into Virginia, right? Tell them about all that's great, what's nearby, how close the shopping is, the parks and the trails that are nearby. And knowledge of the real estate market. This is one of the things that I have always asked the office to do for us. And I love it when Sheila does her stats, right? Because that is something that we have that they don't have, right? Everyone out there thinks that they know everything these days, right? And they think they can get everything online, and maybe they can get some of that information, but interpreting that information, if you're not a real estate agent, you're better at that than they are, even if you're a new agent, right? You do have more knowledge than they do. Remember that, regardless of how new you are, because you are a professional real estate agent, because you're part of this office, as long as you pay attention and attend, our team meetings and listen to the stats, you know more than they do. And so being able to share that is also something of value. And the first real estate, before I was in real estate, this is actually how I chose my first real estate agent. Was I went to an open house and I met someone, and these were the things that impressed me, frankly, were her knowledge of the area and, doing what I had said earlier, where, she said, well, if you like this neighborhood, you might like this neighborhood too. Let me show you these other neighborhoods. That's what hooked me when I was a consumer before I was a realtor. So something of value, again, your knowledge is something of value, and hopefully you can also put something in their hands as well that is something of value. And that can be a lot of different things. So it could be a market stat report, from RBI, from Smart Charts. You could print that off. That has your name on it. It should have your name on it, I think. I pay for it, but I think the free version, you can still print it off a basic market report with your name on it. The finance sheet is something of value that has your name and your information on it. And you could also print some other things, and again, I'll dive deeper into this later. Make an appointment. So that, again, bottom line, make an appointment when, Jen? I'm putting her on
At the open house before they walk out
the
that door.
open house. Jen and I are good at this, but we are best when we make an appointment at the open house. If we try to do it later, even if you've built good rapport and made a good connection, it is harder later. So do it at the open house. I pull out my phone and I've got Jen's calendar on my phone and mine, and I will schedule appointments for Jen at the open house. I'd say I've got her schedule on here. That is hands down one of the best key strategies, is don't let them walk out the door without scheduling an appointment.
Is that an aha for anybody?
It can be.
Yeah, I think a lot of agents don't. They think follow up. I'll do it at follow up.
True.
Right? Don't miss the opportunity.
Yeah, don't be shy. Again, Jen and I both have been guilty of it. Sometimes we let them walk out the door thinking, oh, I'll get them later. And we don't always get them later. Both of us. So, all right, the process. So again, I've kind of scratched the surface and dug in a little bit, but I'll dig in a little bit deeper. So I told you there was a before, during, and after. So before, you need to get them in the door, right? So that is the first step. If no one shows up, then you're not gonna be able to make an appointment. So we want to get people in the door. We want to get people to show up. So obviously the listing agent, first and foremost, is going to be promoting that open house. However, if you are doing it for someone else, you can have a hand in this as well. So make sure that the listing agent, does list it in the MLS with enough time for people to see it. So again, don't be annoying, but maybe just if you notice by Thursday it's not up, maybe ask them if they're going to put it up. And you can also, Sheila, can we still do it for other people? I don't really like to advertise that, but at one point in time, you could access and update other people's MLS in your office.
No.
You can't do that anymore, or it's not a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually took that feature away.
Okay. So again, just if it's not your listing, ask the listing agent to make sure that it is. I recommend not only, there's an add open house button, but also in the comments. These days, I think the technology is better, but just I put it in both places because sometimes people look in one place and not the other, and just cover all your ground by making sure it's in those comments as well as added as an open house. And then again, even if you're not the listing agent, with permission from the listing agent, right? Get permission. I would also recommend making sure you're giving credit to the listing agent, right? And again, Sheila might have, it's funny, Sheila's never been to this presentation before. So before I never had someone like checking behind what I was saying, but
I'm just listening. I promise I'm not checking. I swear I'm not.
No, it's fine, but actually you can, right? Like, tell me if I say something wrong.
That's what I'm here
again,
for,
I've
Kristen.
always done this before with you. What's that?
Said that's what I'm here for. I'm in more now than you are usually.
So so with permission from the listing agent, advertise it. Again, I think you need to give credit. That's what I was going to say. It's like, I don't know what the rules are, but you probably need to mention the listing agent, don't you? Oh, you don't have to.
No, you don't have to. It's
Okay.
our listing, right? So the
Okay.
listing belongs to the office, not to the agent. So as long as the office information is on there and you're in our office, we're good with that.
Okay. So see, that's what I wasn't sure about. Again, so talk to the listing agent, get permission to promote it. And it's nice if, you know, again, whatever the listing agent says, like, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want. Great. You know, the listing agent might say, please share with me what you're going to do. Please, you know, give credit to us as well. And, you know, just work with them on that. And then, you know, use your social media, listservs. You can do flyers. Again, these days, maybe not so much, but I've done that before. When I'd print a flyer, I'd go to a nearby shopping center and pass out flyers, you know, early, like, you know, do it in the morning, the day of the open house. So, and listservs, again, like if you live in or near the neighborhood, you know, if you're on next door and that open house is in that neighborhood, you know, put it out there. And again, and that might not be an advertising piece, but it might just be a, hey, I'm doing this open house. Because again, next door has their own rules. But just think outside the box, right? Again, don't put yourself in a box, spread the word. Door knocking, again, this is another thing that I would definitely make sure you get permission or have that conversation with the listing agent, because I'll use myself as an example. I farm neighborhoods and I door knock in neighborhoods. And so if you're doing one of my open houses in my farm, I would ask that you not door knock in that farm, because I am. And so I don't want you competing with me because I gave you an opportunity on my open house. But if you're doing an open house of mine in Herndon, which is a neighborhood I don't farm, or, you know, Fairfax or Reston, or, you know, these neighborhoods I don't farm, feel free, right? Go ahead and door knock, because door knocking may actually get you a listing, which it has done for me in the past. So yeah, again, door knock as many doors as you want. I'd advise, you know, having a leave behind, giving them a flyer for the open house, and to spread the word, and ask them if they know anyone. Our script when we do that is usually, do you know anyone who's thinking about moving? And they, again, sometimes the answer is I am, and you might end up with a listing. So the other part of before is home and market preview. So I would advise that you do go through the home ahead of time, minimally study it online. Okay, know that home, because you want to be knowledgeable when people come through the door, right? So study it online, read the comments that the listing agent has put in there. What I do when people do my open houses is we'll send an email that says, these are the highlights and features we want you to talk about. So that's something that we do, but not all listing agents will be that proactive. So you can be proactive and ask them, what are the highlights and features that I should know when marketing this home? And again, if you can, go through yourself to see for yourself what you think the highlights and features are. Again, minimally get there early and go through. And then market preview is another good thing, especially if you're a newer agent. So get to know what else is on the market nearby, because as I said in the beginning, if this home isn't the right one for them, then maybe the one around the corner is, because they might, you know, again, they might want to be in that neighborhood or want something similar to that. So if you've gone and looked at the one next, you know, down the street or around the corner, and they come through this one and say, yeah, I like this, but I really need, you know, another bathroom downstairs. You know, well, you can tell them, well, maybe you could put that one in here. You know, that might be part of the conversation. Or, you know, did you see there is one around the corner that is a lot like this and has that? So again, now you're of value to them, because you have studied the market that is near the open house that you are doing. And again, when I was new, I did a lot of previewing. I used to go to Brokers Opens every Tuesday, which again is not so much a thing these days, but also, you know, I'd just go schedule myself to preview homes. Easiest to do if it's vacant, but even if it's not vacant, you can still schedule an appointment to preview a home. You don't have to have a buyer to view a home, because even though you don't have a buyer today, when you do that open house, you might have a buyer. So don't be shy about scheduling to preview a home, because you may very well bring them a buyer by having previewed it and have the knowledge to take with you to that open house. Does that make sense? Jackie?
I was just going to say, in addition to the home and the market, inevitably people are going to ask you, where are the dog parks? You know, oh, I love the Harris Teeter. You know where that is, like right around the corner. And people are going to talk about the neighborhood because they know it. And sometimes they'll ask you those questions to see if you know it as well, if you know what you're talking about.
Right.
And you want to be able to say, well, this house is great because it has a dog park right down here. And, you know, the amenities are right down here, because people will ask those and it will catch you off guard, and you don't want to be in that position. So prep is very important.
Well, you're right. And so it's funny, actually. Again, I assume that everybody does this if they're a realtor, but maybe not. So when I'm going to a home for the first time, I am like scoping out everything en route to that home, right? Like as I'm within, you know, a mile, 2 miles of that home, I'm scoping out, oh, there's a park. Oh, there's a pool right there, right? Oh, you know, dog park, grocery store. So I am scoping all of that out en route to, you know, any home that I'm possibly listing or doing an open house for. So yes, same thing. That would be part of probably that market preview. Create a binder of comps. This is an old thing that I did in the beginning that I'll tell you worked for me. I mean, I can tell you at least 2 clients I can identify who bought with me and then sold with me, where it started here with this binder of comps. Again, you know, I don't do it anymore because I know the market better, but it goes back to when I didn't know the market as well. What I would do is, again, run basic comps in terms of like, okay, if this is a $400,000 or $500,000 townhome that I'm doing an open house for, I would run comps within, you know, a couple of miles of that, from like, you know, 400 to 600 or 300 to 650, something like that. Again, assume if someone's looking at this, go a little bit above, a little bit below in a nearby radius, and just run it and print those comps in like a gallery style. So it's kind of like a quick at a glance. And I would put that in a discrete black binder. I would not have that out on display because, again, if the seller or, you know, comes through, or the seller's neighbor comes through and they see that you're trying to sell other homes, they're not going to be happy with that. But I would have it tucked away. And again, if I have if I identify this home is not the right home for them, then I would say, oh, well, I have, you know, this printout of other homes nearby that you might be interested in. Do you want to take a look? And again, there's 2 clients who I remember specifically. They're like, yeah, that's great. They sat down and they looked through that. I ended up helping them buy and then sell those homes that they bought that started with that binder of comps. So again, it's discreet. I keep it tucked away until later if I've identified the house is not the right one for them.
You know, I might actually add in there, if you had a conversation with your sellers, like on your listing presentation, and just say, at all my open houses, I advertise all of my houses. So you're going to get double exposure or triple or quadruple exposure, because I do a lot of opens. And so I always take your house with me to other open houses, and I'm going to do the same when I have your open house here, just so that I can get more exposure. Just expectations. It has to be done before the open though, right?
Yeah.
So that they know.
Right. Thank you. So 2 other before steps: order a finance sheet and gather any other materials that you want to bring into the home. So that finance sheet can really be an item of value too. That was one of my first clients. I got off of that, frankly. This is how it happened. So I was holding an open house and renters came through the home and they looked around. And then I said, you know, what do you think? And they're like, we love it, but we're in a lease. It was the fall. They were in a lease through the spring. I pulled out the finance sheet and I said, well, this is what it would cost on, you know, the monthly cost would be of this home. And they looked at the monthly cost of the home and they said, oh my God, that's what we're paying for rent. And we love this home. I said, well, here's a lender that you can call. Here's a cell phone number. And the Highlands Mortgage will do this, you know, for all of us when we do our open houses. And so I said, you know, you can call this lender now and get pre-approved. By the time I was home from my open house, they had called the lender, been pre-approved, and wrote an offer on that house because I gave them the information that they needed. to make a good decision, right? They had no idea what a $500,000 house, and back then, 10 years ago, hard to find something for that today, but they had no idea what that would cost on a monthly basis until I gave them that information. So hands down, I recommend asking for finance sheets and having finance sheets ready and bringing them into the open house with you. And then again, any other materials that you might want to bring. So I have a couple of visual aids. It was easier since I was home. I didn't have to carry all this stuff. So can you see, this is like that, a tier stand, right? So when I was new, I literally carried one of these around with me to open houses. So I do have an open house bag. This looks very familiar to Jen because this is my open house bag. So I carry an open house bag. I have it packed with, with the things that I need for my open house. So back in the day, that was in there. I used to bring one of those because if I did have a market report or information about the local neighborhood, the finance sheets, I didn't want to clutter up, right, the kitchen or the home. So I would carry that with me. So that might be part of your before too, is create an open house bag and have your materials that you want to bring that are your items of value that you can put in people's hands. And then signage. So I do signs and I do them myself. I should be paying someone else to do it. Someday I will. But I put them out early and often, I suppose would be a way to say it. So really, again, historically, it's been 8 to 15 signs, and I will sometimes go out as far as 2 miles. I am very strategic in where I put those signs, targeting high traffic areas, also targeting like where people's eyes are, right? Like, so think about where their vision goes. Like if they're driving, the driver's seat is on the left-hand side. So I try to, generally put signs on that side that they're going to be looking in. And so yeah, I mean, and my signs are very visible. That's why I have yellow and red on my colors. It's one of the reasons why I have those colors, so that my signs will stand out. They're big. So I'm not sure what the size is. I don't know if it is a 24 by 24, but I do big signs. And so high traffic areas include like busy intersections and shopping centers. So entrances and exits to shopping centers. So I definitely like to hit those because people, are often going to shop for homes in the areas where they live, work, or play, right? So if they're shopping nearby or if their kids playing soccer nearby, right, that's another place, soccer fields or baseball fields, they might say, oh yeah, I'd love to live closer to this area. Let me wander through this open house. So again, I feel like most of the times when I do this class, it's like all new agents. I feel weird that there's a lot of people that are not new agents here. But for those of you who are new, these are like, and I don't use, these are the, what I like to use for my signs. I don't use the cheap ones. This is like one step up from the cheap ones. And these work just fine. These last pretty long for me. And frankly, again, getting signs in the ground can sometimes be a little bit harder than it looks. Again, Jen is spoiled, and Jen will tell you, I often put the signs out for her, and the couple of times she had to do signs for herself. She almost broke
The one time that I put the signs out for myself, it was pouring down rain, and Steve Gaskins rolls up to me and says, "Are you doing okay?" It was right there in the middle of Duke Street. I was just like, Kristen, you're not. Oh, and then I had the cop try to follow me around that one morning.
In any case, yes, be careful. I mean, be careful putting out signs, but these are sturdy enough. And I do, if you're going to hammer them, I mean, poke around to try to find soft ground. Putting a sign in hard ground is not a good idea. You will break something. Either this will break or, so poke around until you find some soft ground. I use a hammer on these spots here. Again, don't hammer here or don't hammer here. You'll break it. So, that's a little tips on signage that again is, and be careful when you pull off to the side of the road. But if you want to be effective, put them in high traffic areas. Don't just put them where it's easy. I will go across 4 lanes of traffic and put them in the middle. I do that. So, and disclaimer here, there are rules about where your signs can go. And oftentimes where I put my signs, I could very well be fined for them because you are not supposed to put them in medians. I do. I take that risk. I know that that is a risk that I take when I put it out there, that I could get fined for that. And my signs do sometimes disappear. Sometimes it's the vigilante neighbor who doesn't like the signs and takes them down. And so it's part of the cost of my doing business, is that I will sometimes lose signs, get signs taken away, or have a fine to pay for putting signs in places that you're not supposed to put signs.
Sheila's doing this right now. She's like, la, la, la. Oh, I can't hear anything.
I do not attach things to my signs. When I was new with another company, they recommended balloons. I don't do that, mostly frankly, because of the hassle of it. I did used to do balloons, but also that is another violation, that you're not supposed to have anything moving attached to your signs. So that's enough about signs. Again, most of you are not new, but for those people who are new, hopefully that was a little bit helpful. During the open house, okay, so this is, again, digging a little bit deeper into what I talked about earlier. Be welcoming, create a welcome environment. My Spanish guitar music, I love it, and it creates a nice environment to walk into. Again, I'm not blasting it. It is just soft music in the background that creates a nice environment. And I'm welcoming people, I'm extending my hand, I'm smiling. Well, not these days. I used to extend my hand and shake their hands. Again, life, I'll figure out that differently. If we're still shaking hands after all this is over, I don't know. But again, that's why that smile too is so important. Ideally, just smiling when people walk through the door, greeting them, saying welcome to our open house. Create that environment. And then, how did you find me today? Is typically my next question. It is an icebreaker question, and it also will give me some information, because if it is a busy open house, you are going to need to decide where to spend your time. And I'm sorry, this training I've done this multiple times before COVID. So that's why I'm like, most of the stuff that I'm saying is like pre-COVID strategies. So busy open house, right? Like these days, we don't necessarily have busy open houses. Although at the team meeting on Tuesday, I know we talked a little bit about strategies for managing that. So in any case, you still could have a busy open house. It may just not be everyone in the house at the same time. So asking that question, how did you find me today? Sometimes they're going to say, my realtor sent it to me. Okay, great. You know that they have a realtor. So you know that, again, they may be interested in buying this house. And I'll tell you, as a listing agent, I do like to get that information from someone who's held my open house, because I may, as a listing agent, want to follow up with that realtor to say, does your realtor want to buy the house they came, my listing that they came through? So don't totally disregard people who have realtors. Again, get that information and ideally pass that information on to the listing agent, because if you do help the listing agent sell the home, then guess what? That listing agent is going to keep giving you more open houses, right? So, again, remember, the purpose is to sell the home and hopefully get some business and get in a good relationship with a listing agent so you can get more good open houses. So how'd you find me today? If it was their, if they say it's a realtor, then great. You have knowledge now that that person's not really a candidate for you to focus your time on trying to get that appointment, right? Again, you can sell the home, but you're not going to get an appointment with them. If they said they followed your signs, if they followed your signs, again, that's like a ding, ding, ding. People who follow signs are just getting started usually with their search. Okay, and if they're just getting started with their search, they are prime for a buyer consultation. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why it's so important to put those signs out, because if they follow the signs and say, I followed your signs, then that's a great candidate for an appointment. So ask that question to break the ice and get some information about what you're going to kind of do next. And then you're going to set the expectations. So you're not going to get the appointment right now. Okay, it doesn't happen in the beginning. It happens before they leave. You welcome them in, you let them look at the house. But before you let them look at the house, you're going to set the expectations, which is first and foremost to sign in. So first, again, I used to have people sign in on my laptop. Nowadays, it is a touchless sign-in system that I send them a text message for a form. I use JotForm these days. It's a form and I text them the form and they sign in on their phone. So that is how I'm doing sign in these days. So before they walk through the home, and again, it's easier to get people to sign in these days because still some people will say, do I really need to? Yes, we are in a pandemic. And if any, that's not how I say it, but in my head, I'm like, what I do say to them is, if anyone were to be sick, we would want to notify everyone who is here today. So most people agree, of course, to that. If they don't agree to sign in, they're not allowed through the open house, bottom line, especially these days. So get them to sign in. And then the other expectation that I set is I welcome them again to look through the home. Feel free to look through the home. Here's some hand sanitizer that you can use before and after, and feel free to, open doors, and cabinets. And before you go, I will catch up with you to make sure that I answer any questions you have and you have what you need. I set that expectation so they don't sneak out the door without talking to me. And again, Jen will tell the story, that, we did once have a busy open house where someone was trying to sneak out the side door. I went out the front door and got them before they left. So, that damn side door, right? You don't usually have a side door, but in any case, again, setting the expectation, most people don't sneak out. Once I've said to them, I will catch up with you and, make sure you have what you need, answer your questions. Okay. And then the sign-in sheets, taking notes. So again, if whatever that connection was that maybe I made with them in the beginning, I want to make note of that because I have a horrible memory. I don't know about you all, and I just think it gets worse. And so even if I make a really good connection with someone, after like 10 people have come through the open house, I forgot, what it was or what their name was. And so I have to take notes to try to make sure I remember who was who and, who was from Massachusetts and who had the kids and, who was running a marathon the next day, whatever it was, I take those notes. So again, different ways to do that. I think I heard Melinda say that she has a notebook that she does it in. I have a Google sheet. So that Google just responded. So I have a Google sheet that my form feeds into a Google sheet. And so then I can just take notes on their sign-in line in that Google sheet. So that's important for me. Sorry, Google's talking to me now.
Google won't listen to you any other day. And today
know,
you mention
right?
it twice and it actually listens.
I know. So what to have, stuff of value. So we talked about that, right? So make sure, I guess we talked, that's the before part. During, I guess here is where the type of stuff to have is what I would normally talk about. So, we talked about market reports and neighborhood information and things like that. We have a brochure at Homes by Mason. So I always have these, obviously your business cards. We also have calendars. So we have, swag like that we also, try to put, this is a magnet, right? So again, I want it to, be long lasting, especially if it's a longer term lead. If they're not buying something right now, hopefully they stick my magnet on the fridge and call me, later. So those are, make sure you have that stuff during, and then fake it until you make it. Again, especially if you're a new agent, just fake it until you make it. That's what I did. If you feel like you don't know enough, it starts with mindset, and you have to understand and know that you do know more than they do. And you are of value as a professional licensed realtor, because they're not. And so you are of value regardless. You have value to give them. And so you have to have that mindset going into it. And that will help. That's going to come across, right? That's part of what works for me, right? Is just having that confidence, having that mindset that I am of value and I have something of value. Yes, I have paper of value, but more than that, I have services of value to give these people. So you have to believe that. even if you don't fake it until you make it. So before they leave, so this is the part where you're going to get the appointment, ideally. Okay, so these are the key questions that we ask that ultimately land us appointments. So the first question is always open-ended. What did you think about the house? It is not, did you like the house? That is yes or no. I want to engage in a conversation with them. Okay, so it is, what did you think about the house? Get them talking. And this also goes back to, you need to find out if it's the right house for them or not. You're not allowed, right, in my opinion, and in, I think, our professional ethics, to really be selling them another house until you have figured out if this is the right house. So what do they think about it? Well, yeah, it was awesome, except for the purple walls. Well, you know, paint is cheap. If I help you buy this house, I'll come help you paint the walls. How about that, right? So, these are the kinds of conversations you might have, right? If it's just purple walls, well, that's not a deal breaker. So you then are going to continue to talk to them about this house and maybe try to sell this house to them. If they say, really love it, but it's just above our price range. We just can't afford this. We didn't realize, we followed the signs, didn't realize how much it was. Okay, so what is your price range, right? So now you're in a conversation with them. Now you've identified it's not the right home and you're engaging in conversation, and now you can start talking, that market preview that you did. Now maybe you give them those binder of comps to look at, or you just start telling them, oh, well, I know this other neighborhood that you might like that is a lower priced neighborhood that is similar to this. Do you know about that neighborhood? Right? So that's how you start to engage them in conversation, by starting with an open-ended question. This next question is not open-ended, because if you haven't figured out yet if it's the right home or not, then you do need to ask this question. Do you think it might be the right match for you? Okay, so if I'm not sure, then I'm going to ask this question. And if not, why not? Now that question, again, helps you gather information that you can then start helping them find the right home and show your knowledge of other homes that might be right for them. When they say, no, it's not the right fit. Well, why not? Tell me more about that. So here's some other key questions. How long have you been looking? When we ask this question and they're like, this is our first weekend, guess what? Perfect opportunity for a buyer's consultation. You are not going to let them walk out that door without making an appointment. If it is their first weekend looking, if it's their second weekend looking, right? You're going to make an appointment with those people because they probably don't have a realtor if they just started looking. So those people who have just started looking, you definitely, those are the people you really want to target for appointments. And so what we say is typically, you just started looking. What we do at Homes by Mason with people who are just starting their search is a no cost, no obligation buyer consultation, in which we're going to find out more about your wants and needs to make sure that you're looking at the right homes and the right locations. We're going to share with you the most current statistics and trends in our local market, and we're going to walk you through the steps to buying a home in Virginia. Do you think that would be of benefit to you? That line I got from Anthony Carr, right? Would that be of benefit to you? As you're nodding your head. It's really hard to say no when you say it that way. Would that be of benefit to you? All of those things. And they're like, well, yeah, okay, great. Are evenings or weekends better for you, right? How's tomorrow at 6? I've got my calendar here. And that's when you schedule the appointment. So especially if they've just started looking. Have you spoken with a lender yet? That's another question that, again, the sequence of them, sometimes that just comes more naturally first. Again, if they've not spoken with a lender, you can then give them that finance sheet, which is something of value, and hopefully then links them into a trusted lender that you would love them to work with. And what's my next one? Do you have a realtor helping you with your search? So again, the sequence of these is not necessarily in this order. But this is a question I don't usually ask at the front end. I do, because again, I want to build that rapport and I want to engage in conversation and try to build that relationship before asking this question, because sometimes they might lie to you, believe it or not, right? They might. And so for that reason, I'll tell you too. So again, so that's why I want to build rapport and engage first before asking this question. And then when I do ask this question, I ask it in this way, not do you have a realtor? Do you have a realtor helping you? Because again, I want to put it in their head that that's what I do, right? I am here to help. I'm here to serve. I want to help you. Do you have a realtor helping you? And if they say no, again, then I'm like, great, at Home Signage, and this is what we do, offer, a no cost, no obligation buyer consultation in which we do this, that, and that. Would that be of benefit to you? If they say yes, they have a realtor, I often will ask the next question, great, who's your realtor? For two reasons. Again, one, they might be lying. And if they don't know their realtor's name, they might not have a realtor, or it might just be someone who's sending them stuff online. And that's why Jen earlier said maybe. One of the things that I said, I chuckled because on occasion, they sort of have a realtor, but they haven't signed anything with them. And if you show them enough value and give enough value to them, then they're going to choose you over that sort of realtor that they have. So who's the realtor that you're working with? Ask that for that reason. And also, again, as a listing agent, please give me that information. If they do have a realtor and you're doing an open house for me, I'd like to have that information so that I can follow up with the realtor to say, hey, your clients came through my open house. Are they interested in buying it? All right. And then there's the after. So I said it before, I'll say it again. Before, during, and after, you have to do it all, or you're wasting your time, even me. So the after is basically follow up, follow up, follow up, right? And follow up sooner rather than later, because the lead is going to get colder, the more time that passes. So if you can do it Sunday night, follow up Sunday night. And my next one is call, text, email, video. I mean, so, maybe it's just a text message on Sunday night. Hey, thanks for coming to my open house. It was a pleasure to meet you. Please let me know if you have any follow-up questions. I know it's Sunday night. Like, again, I want to spend time with my family on Sunday nights. So maybe it's not a phone call on Sunday night, but just keep it warm is what I encourage you to do, is that, you have a better likelihood of converting them when the warmer that they are, right? So even at Home Site Mason, we are still working on our follow-up systems. We have not perfected our follow-up systems by any means. And that's why, like I said, really our success is in getting the appointments at the open house. And then when we do a buyer consultation, we have a really good conversion rate of converting people from our consultations. So that is our best success, is scheduling appointments at the open houses. But we still sometimes have success in our follow-up afterwards. I just can't, this is not a training on follow-up after open houses. That's not my expertise. That's not what I'm great at necessarily. So the script, though, that in general, the excuse kind of for that follow-up is, did you have any further questions about that house, right? That's your excuse to contact them, or feedback for the seller. So that's your reason to follow up. And again, when they say, no, again, that house wasn't for me, we're just browsing, we're just starting, then that opens the door for other conversations like, oh, if you're just started, you're just getting started, I'd love to offer you a no cost, no obligation buyer consultation in which we talk about the steps of buying a home, talk about, what's happening in the market, and find out more about your wants and needs to see if we can help you find the right home. Would that benefit you? Right? So that's the conversation you want to get to. That's the biggest item of value you have to give them, is that buyer consultation. And if you get them to a buyer consultation, then you have a good rate of converting them, as long as you have a good buyer consultation. There should be a class. I think Drew does a class on buyer consultations, doesn't he? So call, text, email, video. So call. Millennials, right? And I think I hear this a lot. I think I heard it the other day that, some people will say, people don't call anymore, right? People don't want to talk on the phone anymore. Well, I mean, that's not necessarily true, right? Like, don't make that assumption. And not everybody are millennials. And I mean, so yeah, maybe millennials are going to be, you know, texting more so than calling. But the point is, don't make that assumption. And yes, pick up the phone and call, because again, face-to-face is my preference to be with leads. And my second preference is voice-to-voice. And I just try to make sure I smile when I talk so that hopefully my voice does come across. Rebecca, who is our transaction and client care coordinator, she reminds me of that all the time. They can hear your smile, right? So try to smile when you're talking on the phone, it comes across. So face-to-face is best. I do think that phone call or voice-to-voice is also a warm touch, warmer than a text message or an email for sure, in my opinion. So please pick up the phone and call. You know, do not be shy about that. Jen, do you want to say anything about that?
I was the one that told you that the other day.
Well, right, that piece about not calling, but you didn't like making calls.
Yeah, it's never one of my thing, because my thing is that if I did a really great job at building that rapport at that open house, like I'm going to figure out the way to get a hold of them. You know, whichever way is their preferred method of contact. That's also something I think that also is important too. Like, if you call my mom and try to get her to do this, she will literally hang you on the phone for like 4 hours. And like, now your lead gen time has like been sucked into oblivion. You know, I would probably ask, you know, what is your preferred method? And that's going to be your first day after the follow-up: call, text, email. You know, those are our first 3 that we do. Call, text, you know, we call. Sometimes we leave a voicemail, sometimes we don't. Usually we don't. We hang up and then text, and then we'll follow up with an email the very same day, which is funny because I'm actually working on our follow-up plans in our CRM right now. And yeah, and you know, I say, you know, sometimes in the text message or even the phone call, what is your best way of, you know, responding back to me?
So yeah, so that is, I know Jen wants us to ask that question. Actually, she wants us to ask that question on our sign-in system. I am not a big fan of asking that question because, again, I mean, I want an opportunity to make the warm touch as much as possible. And yet, again, if they're not responding to the calls, and we do try all of them until we try to figure out what is their preferred communication. However they respond back to us is how we want to continue to communicate with them. You know, so, and I do recommend leaving a voicemail. So my process is typically call, leave a voicemail if you can, and then hang up and text afterwards and say, I just left you a voicemail. Because again, some people, I don't listen to my voicemails. That's me. I mean, I know people will give me a hard time about that, but generally, you know, I have 2 voicemail boxes. One of them is full because I don't listen to that one. The other one will send me an email, whatever someone sends me a message, that's the one that I listen to because it emails it to me. In any case, I don't trust that people are going to listen to their voicemails. So I hang up and text them and say, I sent you a message, not sure if you're, you know, left you a message, not sure if you'll get it or not. I just want to make sure, you know, I left you a message, again, trying to follow up on that open house. And then the email is kind of the same thing, that, you know, we'll basically say the same thing, you know, just trying to follow up with you, you know, left you a message, not sure what's the best way to communicate. And again, whichever way, if they are responding to you, continue that mode of communication ideally. And I did add video on here because, of course, these days that is, you know, we have the opportunity to do that. Back when I started doing this and back when I started doing open houses, video communication was not a thing really. And so now, again, you can send a video text message. And I just think that's a great way to do it. Again, that it's face to face. If it's video, it's warmer. They can see you smiling. They can see, you know, they're going to recognize you from the open house if you do a video. Versus, again, if you send a text message, you send an email, they may or may not remember you if they went to a bunch of open houses that day. So that's my recommendation there. And personalize your follow-up, please. Again, you know, we do have follow-up plans that we're working on for our longer term. leads, but in that first week, in my opinion, they should not be drip plans. They should not be automated plans. In that first week after the open house, it should be personal manual touches that are personalized. Again, if you met their kids, you know, if they were running a marathon the next day, if they, you know, were going home to watch, you know, the Skins play, like make a comment about what it was that you learned about them or that you talked about. Or, hey, I know you didn't like the purple walls, you know, whatever it is. Personalize it so they know that you are putting time into this communication and that it is not an automated thing. And then don't take it personally. So this is the other thing that I think we're all guilty of, including myself, is that if they don't get back to you right away, don't take it personally. Life happens, right? We are full-time real estate agents. This is what we do for a living. So we live, breathe, eat real estate and expect people to be doing the same thing. They're not, right? They have jobs and they have parents and they have kids, and their parents might have gotten sick, or, you know, something happened to their brother or their friend, and, you know, their work is busy and they've got things going on in their lives outside of real estate. So do not take it personally. And so keep trying. Put them on a follow-up plan, put them in your database, and come up with some way to follow up with them. And it is okay to call even 6 months later or beyond. One of the stories that I like to tell is that I did get a client who called me like 7 years later. It was one of my very first listing, actually. They had met me, I think, there, and I put them on my e-newsletter. And like 6 years later, I didn't remember them, but like 6 years later, they called me and I helped them sell a home and I helped them buy a home. So
I had one last year, Melanie and David.
right, yeah, so that's another one. So, you know, I said in the beginning that open houses are warm leads. Most often, I would say they are thinking about buying or selling in the near future. So that's why I love open houses. Sometimes they are longer term leads. So don't take it personally and don't give up on them. I went to one training once that said, follow people until they either tell you to stop or they buy or sell with you or they die. That's what someone told me once, right? Those are the only times that you stop. So that is basically my presentation. Any questions?
There was a question in the chat from Leah earlier. What's your script to sellers about holding in-person open houses to combat the fear?
Yeah, I actually answered that one at the beginning.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, is Leah still here? Yeah, she's
Yeah.
here. Leah, I think I touched, yeah, are you happy with my answer, or do you want to, anything else on that?
No, you did. You did answer the question.
Oh, how did I miss
Thank
that?
you.
Mhm.
And then Kim, is Kim still here? She's not. I don't think. She had asked about how are you so successful at converting open house attendees? So I think I answered that, right? I mean, it's not like there's not a magic bullet necessarily, but it's all of those things.
So I think it's a mindset shift because you do it there. And I think agents wait to do it after. And I think that's the big difference.
Yeah. I mean, again, and it's funny too, it's, you know, I don't know when that happened for me, or when I was a new agent and I was just so desperate for business. That's just when I started doing it, right? It was like I needed the business. So I wasn't letting him out the door without, you know, trying to make an appointment. And my mentor, when I was new, actually did tell me, her advice to me was, every Saturday you should have an appointment to be showing property, basically. You know, you should have an appointment every Saturday. So that was also for me. It was like, okay, well, if I didn't get an appointment at the open house, then the rest of the week I'm trying to get an appointment. And I was staying late at the office, calling until 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night with a new baby at home until I got an appointment. So again, yeah, somehow I just figured out the best way to do it was at the open house. And again, and those of you who think it's hard to schedule an appointment, I schedule appointments for Jen. I don't even schedule them for me. Like I schedule them for somebody else at my open house. So don't tell me you can't schedule an appointment for yourself. Like,
And me being the buyer's agent has started scheduling listing appointments for Kristen. And funny enough, we just had one, and I believe they're our client now, aren't they? Right next door.
yeah, they're under contract.
Yeah, exactly. So if you could, I mean, yeah, if you if you got the wherewithal and the mode, the drive to do it, don't be scared, but definitely find something in common with that person. Like I tend to get a lot of like car people, a lot of car people. I actually have another client coming back strictly because like we bonded over cars, and we went to a couple car meets together before I sold my car, of course. But yeah, so just be yourself, fake it until you make it, and just look for the next opportunity.
Yeah. I was like, you're obviously not going to car meets at open houses, but again, finding that connection, right? So again, however
You never know.
However you can find that connection. So again, Jen is a car person. So if they're driving a hot car, she'll probably comment on their hot car when they come in the door. That's
She
something
will.
she would comment on. Versus, me, I'm commenting on, like I like gardening, right? So like, like whatever, you are passionate about or you like, again, if you can find that connection with someone, again, you're gonna build rapport quickly, and the better that you have rapport, the more likely they are gonna agree to meet with you. So again, sprinkled throughout this presentation, I mean, there's lots of ways to get to that appointment. Rapport is one of them, showing value and being of value. That's kind of the other route to the appointment. You can get the appointment and then do the buyer consultation and convert at the buyer at the consultation.
And I don't know if we're still offering, but I mean, if we're ever doing an open house, I mean, I know I'm always willing to help, a new agent or existing, I don't care. You could be like the agent that has the most experience in the business. If you want to come and do it, I don't care. I'll do that. We'll learn off of each other. So feel free to contact us. And if I got an open house to come, you're more than welcome to come in and, sit by. I did have one person do that, and he did come through, and Rob, and came through, and he called me that very next weekend and said, Jen, I got an appointment. And I was like, yes, okay, let's finish it up.
So for those of you who don't know, in case you don't know, Jen is the
I'm just a random person sitting here.
Well, no, it's okay. I mean, like I said, I'm looking at who's here. I don't necessarily know everybody who's here, so they don't.
I'm the other person on that
brochure.
Brochure.
That's her on the brochure. So she's the buyer agent on my team. So she's been trained firsthand and has been my understudy, and she's been with the team going on 4 years now. And so we both are successful at getting business through open houses. And yes, if people want to shadow us, that is something that lots of people have asked to do, and we are happy to allow people to do that, either one of us. So any questions? I don't see anything else in the chat box.
Well, thank you for an amazing class.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Kristen. That was very helpful.
You're welcome. Mary, I think you've been to the class before too, haven't you?
I have, but it's been a slow year and I got